Alright, welcome to the 2020 Xtreme Mock Draft video. I will be giving my predictions on how I think the first 3 rounds of our rookie draft are going to play out and provide my reasoning behind each pick, as well as provide some analysis of the prospects. In my review, I will also be adding some comments on what other owners think about some of these picks. Let's get started. Gotham City Jokers is on the clock. Let's take a look at the first round draft order and how we got here. 1-1. Gotham City Jokers. Prior to announcing the pick, let's take a look at Gotham's team roster and his team needs. He primarily needs to add 1 running back, 4 wide receivers, 2 linebackers, and maybe a defensive end. I think everyone is in agreement that owner Mike Jargo needs to take this consensus 1-1 on the board, and that is LSU running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Helaire was also the first running back taken in the real NFL draft by the Kansas City Chiefs, which is one of the reasons why he is the consensus 1-1. Everyone wants a piece of that high-octane Kansas City offense. He easily has the best landing spot of all rookie running backs in this draft class. What makes Edwards-Helaire the consensus 1-1? He is 5'7", 207 pounds. He has 4.5 speed, so he has the ability to outrun you, but he also has the size and ability to run between the tackles, and he is so dangerous in the receiving game. He is a more athletic version of Austin Eckler. He is about 3 inches shorter than LaShawn McCoy and Christian McCaffrey, but is about the same weight. I'm not suggesting he is either one of those 2 guys, but he has the potential to be. Other more popular comparisons for him are MJD and Ray Rice. As I mentioned, he is a great PPR pass-catching running back out of the backfield and can also split out wide in the slot. He is an absolute mismatch against linebackers. The only knock on him is his pass blocking, but you want him running routes on 3rd down and not pass blocking, so it's not a huge deal. This is a no-brainer for Gotham. In a mock draft conducted with DOS Raiderhawk owner Justin Sanderson and Fuck Xtreme owner Taylor Tubbs, Taylor agreed that Edwards-Helaire was the right call for Gotham at 1. 1-2. The Crows owner Todd Tubbs traded up to the 1-3 and 1-8 with Blattercops in exchange for Levante David, Danny Trevathan, Devin Singletary, Austin Hooper, and a 2021 second-round pick, before also trading up 1 more spot to the 1-2 with Poor Bastards in exchange for Ben Roethlisberger. The Crows seriously need to do something here to replace the production they just lost from trading away Singletary. So who did the Crows trade up specifically to get? Detroit Lions running back out of Georgia, DeAndre Swift. Pre-NFL draft, I think Swift was the best running back in the country. A lot of people have soured on him due to the landing spot. I think that this is absurd, and here's why. Number 1, draft talent, not landing spot. Situations change quickly in the NFL, but talent never does. Swift is 5'8", 212 pounds, and was drafted in the 2nd round by the Detroit Lions. Number 2, everyone tells me that their biggest problem with the landing spot is that Detroit is where running backs go to die. My reaction is always, until the one time it isn't. Sure, Detroit has only had 4 1,000-yard rushers since Barry left, and only 1 1,000-yard rusher since 2004. But that's not really a fair assessment. We can really only judge the Detroit running game on what has happened since Matt Patricia got there, and even then only after Darrell Bevell came in last season and changed the offense that Jim Bob Cooter was running, and the sample size isn't big enough. I think Kerryon could have eclipsed that mark had he not gotten hurt in each of the last 2 seasons. Kerryon was on pace to break 1,000 yards last season under new offensive coordinator Darrell Bevell, who has only been there since January of 2019 and has only had 1 season under his belt, so how can we compare his offense to the Detroit offense since Barry left? Bevell was able to produce 1,000-yard rushers with Minnesota 4 times Adrian Peterson and the Seattle Seahawks 4 times Marshawn Lynch. Bevell has produced 8 1,000-yard seasons. The only obstacle to Swift getting to 1,000 yards in his first year or 2 will likely be the timeshare he is in with Kerryon Johnson. Kerryon will still be involved in the game plan. Swift doesn't have the crazy college production that Jonathan Taylor had, but not only did Swift have to share a backfield with Nick Chubb and Sony Michel, but the Georgia coach has said publicly that he gives his players a chance to showcase their stuff without overworking them on their way to the NFL, unlike Jonathan Taylor and his 900 carries. However, he still managed to rush for 2,885 yards on 440 carries in 3 seasons with a 6.6 yards per carry average and 20 career rushing touchdowns. Imagine what Swift could have done with Taylor's college volume, considering that their per carry average was the same, but he had half the attempts Taylor had. Swift was a more productive college receiving back than Taylor, and both Chubb and Michel catching a career 73 receptions for 666 yards and 5 touchdowns. This translates to more PPR points than Taylor, who will be unlikely to get Hines off the field on third downs. He has some player comparisons to Arian Foster, Dalvin Cook, Kenyon Drake, and Miles Sanders. He has tremendous vision and elusiveness. He is an incredibly patient runner and has the burst to hit the hole and the 4.48 speed to hit the second level. He has great instincts and lets his blocks develop. The biggest knock on Swift, other than his landing spot, is that he doesn't possess the same level of contact balance as some of the other top backs in this class, and he runs too upright and needs to lower his pad level. This pick makes sense for owner Todd Tubbs, considering he also owns Kerryon Johnson and has a lot invested in Johnson. I think they are worth more together as handcuffs than they are separately. It may require a little patience in year 1 with Swift, but by year 2 I fully expect Swift to be the lead back in Detroit, and because I think Kerryon Johnson is also still a top running back, I wouldn't be surprised to see him get traded and find a starting job on a new team. Situations change, talent never does. 1-3, Poor Bastards. Poor Bastards traded back one spot with the Crows and picked up Roethlisberger in exchange. Let's take a look at the team needs for the Poor Bastards. Despite trading for Big Ben, he still desperately needs a quarterback, a pair of wide receivers, a tight end, defensive tackle, defensive end, linebacker, and a safety. With the 1-2 owner, Greg Kukier selects wide receiver CeeDee Lamb out of Oklahoma. I struggled with this pick a little after he recently traded away Josh Jacobs for Amari Cooper. He absolutely does not need a running back. With Saquon, Breida, Eckler, and Henry on his roster, he needs to focus his attention on positions that will improve his starting lineup. Other than quarterback, wide receiver is his biggest team need. I strongly considered giving him Jerry Jeudy with this pick, but I quickly changed my mind. Lamb is easily the number 1 wide receiver in this draft class, and you cannot draft based on your current roster. Just take the best player available. No one would complain if they had Mike Evans and Chris Godwin on the same fantasy team. 15 weeks out of the season, they're both going to produce. You can't draft around 1 week out of the season and worry about bye weeks. Will the Dallas bye weeks be tough for Poor Bastards? Possibly, depending on how the rest of the draft goes, but I just don't think he can pass up Lamb at 3. Now let's take a look at what makes Lamb so great. Lamb was selected as the 3rd wide receiver in the NFL draft by the Dallas Cowboys at pick 117. He's 6'2", 198 pounds. Lamb was productive immediately at Oklahoma with 807 yards and 7 touchdowns in 2017, which were both Oklahoma freshman receiving records. He then broke out in his sophomore season with 60 receptions for 1,100 yards and had 10 touchdowns in both his second and third seasons. He finished his college career with over 3,300 total yards and 33 touchdowns in 40 games across 3 seasons. His college dominator score was in the 76th percentile. His best skill is easily his insane body control, the way he is able to contort his body to make spectacular catches. Because of his impressive body control and vice grip hands, I would compare him to DeAndre Hopkins. Lamb is dominant in contested catch situations, winning at the point of the catch, tracking the ball downfield, and can be dangerous with the ball in his hands, and can elude defenders with angry running and 4.5 speed. My point is, don't get cute when drafting. Just take the best player available for your team needs. Owner Justin Sanderson said, "Wide receiver has to be the pick for Bastards," and I agree. Since quarterback is clearly his number 1 need, why not take a quarterback at 1-2? The first round of fantasy drafts is for running backs, wide receivers, the occasional tight end, and linebackers. In the 7-year history of the league, only 1 quarterback has been taken in the first round at 112, and that was a special circumstance. The next earliest pick a quarterback has ever come off the board is 2-4, so he has the luxury of waiting. The 1-4. This is currently a vacant team. Let's take a look at the team needs. The team needs a running back, tight end, and linebacker. The team is surprisingly pretty stacked. We can see that the team already has Nick Chubb, Todd Gurley, David Johnson. Not a bad start. Let's get to the pick. At 1-4, they select Indianapolis Colts running back out of Wisconsin, Jonathan Taylor. He is 5'10", 225 pounds. Jonathan Taylor finished his college career with the 6th most rushing yards in NCAA history. The 5 running backs who finished ahead of him did it in 4 seasons, while he rushed for over 6,000 yards in just 3. He finished less than 1,000 yards away from the all-time leader. He also had 50 career rushing touchdowns and had a 6.7 yards per carry average, despite facing defenses every week committed to stopping him. He had a college dominator score of 41.8 in the 93rd percentile. He ran a 4.39 40 at the combine and was drafted by the Indianapolis Colts in the second round. He has drawn some comparisons to Ezekiel Elliott, Nick Chubb, Arian Foster, and Lamar Miller. He has both speed and power, which allows him to blast through tackles and then break away with speed, and also has tremendous contact balance. Once he hits top speed in the open field, there is no catching him. The three biggest knocks on Taylor are his fumbling, his wear and tear, and his lack of receiving yards. He fumbled the ball 18 times in 41 games on 926 carries. The 926 carries are also concerning because in addition to his 42 receptions, he touched the ball 968 times. That was an average of about 23.6 carries per game. In comparison, J.K. Dobbins had 796 touches over 42 games, Cam Akers had 655 touches in 36 games, and DeAndre Swift only touched the ball 513 times over 43 games. Those other three backs had more receptions and less hammering the ball down the middle. The concern is that the wear and tear on Taylor's body will impact his future in the NFL. His lack of receiving yards is less his fault and more about how he was used at Wisconsin. Although he had 42 receptions in 3 seasons, 26 of those came in his last year. Fellow Wisconsin alum Melvin Gordon had similar criticisms coming out of college and is now one of the best receiving backs in the NFL. Taylor also has year 1 competition for touches with Marlon Mack and third down back Nyheim Hines. In all fairness, Justin Sanderson mocked J.K. Dobbins to this team at 4, but had he known Taylor was still available, he likely would have went Taylor. 1-5, Daddy Issues. If we take a quick look at Daddy Issues' team needs, we see that he doesn't have a lot of needs. He mostly needs a wide receiver, a tight end, and possibly a linebacker. Otherwise, he is just drafting to add some depth to the pieces that he already has. If somehow J.K. Dobbins or Jonathan Taylor fall to Matt Ron at 5, and he took either one, no one could fault him for that. Matt has somehow gained a reputation of drafting running backs in the first round, despite the fact that out of 8 first-round picks dating back to 2013, he has drafted a running back only 3 times and a wide receiver 5 times. I believe that trend continues here, and Daddy Issues selects Jerry Jeudy. Jerry is 6'1", 193 pounds, out of Alabama and drafted by the Denver Broncos at pick 115. Jeudy broke out his sophomore season at Alabama after Calvin Ridley entered the NFL and Tua took over at quarterback. His 2018 season ended with him winning the Blitnikoff Award as the best receiver in college football as a true sophomore. He was again strong in 2019, although it was a bit of a step back from his great sophomore season. There were a lot of mouths to feed in that Alabama offense, so that is why his college dominator score is only in the 35th percentile. His best NFL comparison is Calvin Ridley, and not just because they are both from Alabama. They are both fantastic route runners. There may not be a better route runner in this draft class than Jeudy. Another good comp for him is Jeremy Maclin. He has the ability to cut and stop on a dime. His foot quickness is tremendous, and it allows him to separate from press coverage despite lacking physicality in his game. As a technician, he is as pro-ready as it gets, and he has the ability to run the full route tree. His biggest weaknesses are his lack of physicality, which can sometimes allow him to get redirected in press coverage, and also impacts his ability to win contested catches despite having great hands. He will definitely benefit from having Courtland Sutton on the other side of the field, in much the same way Ridley has benefited from having Julio on the other side of the field. He will also benefit from the presence of Noah Fant and the run game from Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay. The real question here is whether or not Drew Lock is the real deal. He sure looked like it down the stretch last season, but rest assured if he's not, Elway won't hesitate to bring in someone else, so I believe Jeudy's long-term success will be just fine. In a weaker draft class, Matt Ron could consider going linebacker, but not with this elite tier of offensive players on the board. He'll have an opportunity to get his linebacker in the second round with deep linebacker options also. 1-6, Kyle Orton's drinking buddies. If we take a quick look at his roster and his team needs, we'll see that he could use a quarterback, running back, 2 wide receivers, possibly a tight end, defensive end, and a linebacker. Since it would be ridiculous for him to take a quarterback here at 1-6, I believe he has to go running back or wide receiver. Of course, in the 7-year history of the league, he is only one of 3 teams, including Dawson Gotham, to select 2 linebackers in the first round, so don't count out the possibility that Fabian takes a linebacker here. However, his linebackers are fine for now with Kwiatkowski, getting C.J. Mosley back, Shaq Thompson, Kyle Van Noy, and Devin White. There is some great linebacker depth in the later rounds, and I just can't see him going linebacker in the first round in back-to-back years. He could go wide receiver here, but this wide receiver class is deep, and he already has McLaurin, Miller, Sanu, Juju, and Dede Westbrook. I think Orton has to address his running back problem first. Only Fournette is a guaranteed starter. No other running back on his team is a starter or guaranteed to repeat last year's stat line, including Lindsey and Damian Williams. I believe Kyle Orton's drinking buddies are ecstatic to still have a running back like J.K. Dobbins still on the board at 6. Running back does not have the depth that other positions do in this draft, so he can't afford to pass on one of the top backs in the draft at 6. Dynasty League football has Dobbins in Tier 1 with only Edwards-Helaire and Taylor. Dobbins is 5'10", 209 pounds out of Ohio State. He was selected in the second round by the Baltimore Ravens and looks to be the long-term replacement for Mark Ingram, who is already 30. Dobbins was an extremely productive running back across the board in college as both a rusher and a receiver. He topped 1,000 rushing yards and 20 receptions in each of his 3 seasons, which is incredible. A good NFL comparison for him would be Josh Jacobs. They're both plus pass catchers, demonstrate great contact balance and vision, and run with power and agility. Dobbins has excellent vision and contact balance and does just about everything well. He is a great receiver out of the backfield and runs decent routes and is dangerous with the ball in the open field. If he does have a weakness, it is definitely in his pass protection, which is often typical for rookie running backs. He understands pass protection and can identify his assignments, but he lacks consistency in his execution. Also, despite doing many things well, he isn't necessarily elite at any of them. That should not stop you from drafting this phenom primed to succeed in the NFL. Maybe in past seasons with weaker draft classes, Fabian goes linebacker, but not in a year with this level of offensive players, especially when a top 3 running back falls in your lap at 6. I think even if Dobbins gets taken at 4 or possibly 5, Orton would need to take best available between Taylor and Judy in that case. 1-7, Joe Mama. If we look at his roster, we see that he needs a running back, 2 wide receivers, a defensive end, and a linebacker. In the 4 years owner Caden Tubbs has been in the league, he has had 5 picks in the first round and has drafted 1 running back, 3 wide receivers, and a linebacker. Let's take a closer look at the wide receivers he has selected in the first round. In 2016, he selected Corey Coleman. In 2017, he selected John Ross. And in 2019, he selected Mecole Hardman. What do each of these 3 wide receivers have in common? Speed. Coleman ran a 4.37 40, Ross had the record with a 4.22 40, and Hardman ran a 4.33 40. We also notice that he has Tyreek Hill, who ran a 4.29 40, Brandon Cooks, who ran a 4.33, and Stephon Diggs, who ran a 4.46. And it's not difficult to see that owner Caden Tubbs covets speed. Well, I think you know where I'm going with this, and at 1-7, Joe Mama selects Alabama wide receiver Henry Ruggs, who was drafted by the Las Vegas Raiders at 1-12. He is 5'11 and 188 pounds and ran a blistering 4.27 40 at the combine. He also has a speed score in the 90th percentile and a burst score in the 98th percentile. At 112, he was the first wide receiver taken in the NFL draft and has the draft capital to see early production in the NFL. The Raiders are in need of someone to step up at wide receiver and make some plays. I'm sure John Gruden is salivating over ways to get Ruggs involved in the offense. Ruggs was never the lead guy in Alabama, and we can see from his stats that he never topped 750 yards receiving in a single season. He had several huge games, but his impact was felt beyond just his stats. Of course, due to his speed, he draws a lot of comparisons to the aforementioned Tyreek Hill and John Ross. He is a more polished player than John Ross, and he may be more comparable to Deshaun Jackson than Tyreek Hill. He forces cornerbacks to respect him with his deep speed and his ability to get to top speed very quickly and blow by defenders. He is a solid route runner and has tremendous ability to track the deep ball and can adjust his body and his hands to make tough catches. He plays with a swagger that is reminiscent of Deshaun Jackson. Due to his lean frame and physicality, press coverage can sometimes give him some trouble. The biggest question for Ruggs is whether he is D-Jax or Tyreek Hill, or if he's John Ross, or worse, Corey Coleman. Time will tell. Hopefully it's the former. 1-8. This is the second pick acquired from Bladder Cups in the big trade we mentioned earlier. Crows gave up 2 of his best linebackers in the deal and has to replace that production. He currently is pretty thin at linebacker. There are 3 linebackers on the board here that make sense between Simmons, Murray, and Queen. Todd Tubbs is going to follow the lead of the real NFL draft, where this linebacker was also taken at 1-8, and that is Arizona Cardinals linebacker out of Clemson, Isaiah Simmons. Simmons is 6'4", 238 pounds, and ran a ridiculous 4.39 40-yard dash, which is in the 100th percentile. His speed score is also in the 100th percentile, and his burst is in the 96th percentile. Simmons is a versatile Swiss Army weapon. The Cardinals say they plan to use him mostly at linebacker, but his true IDP value comes from his ability to line up all over the field and play multiple positions. He has the movement and the speed to cover tight ends and running backs. He can slide in the slot or drop back and play safety. He can rush the quarterback from the outside linebacker position and can tackle sideline to sideline with his elite speed. He has a rare blend of athleticism and football acumen and will be on the field close to 100% of the time. He has the potential to finish as a top 12 linebacker or LB1 several times in his career, and that is why many Dynasty analysts consider him to be the number 1 linebacker in this draft class. He has a safe floor due to his tackles and a super high ceiling due to his ability to create turnovers and get sacks. Imagine a floor of 8 tackles per game, which in our league translates to 16 points per game, but the ability in any week to add a forced fumble, 1 or 2 sacks, an interception, or a touchdown, and his ceiling is over 20 points per game, which you would love to get out of a running back, let alone a linebacker. By the way, if he averaged 20 points per game last season, that would have made him the highest scoring linebacker in our league last year. There is just too many ways for him to score. One more note about these linebackers. Crows could go Murray or Queen here also, but if their floors are all about the same, why not take the one with the highest ceiling? Simmons could be a once-in-a-generation talent. 1-9, Das Raiderhawk. Let's take a quick look at Justin Sanderson's team needs. He needs a running back, but not nearly as much now since trading Amari Cooper to poor bastards for Josh Jacobs. He needs a wide receiver, defensive tackle, and linebacker. He could go running back here with Cam Akers. He could take the second straight linebacker off the board also. We've seen him draft 2 linebackers in the first round in 7 years, so wouldn't be surprised to see him do it a 3rd time. However, I think he takes his wide receiver here because he loves the landing spot in Philadelphia for this wide receiver, and he can't pass up the opportunity to draft a number 3 overall wide receiver in this draft class, Jalen Reagor out of TCU. Reagor is 5'11" and 206 pounds and runs to 40 in 4.47. Dynasty League Football staff writer Stephen Gill's wide receiver breakout model predicts that Reagor has the highest probability of all wide receivers in this draft class to break out with a score of 83.5%. Reagor broke out as a true freshman at 18.7 years old, 95th percentile for breakout age, when he caught 33 passes for 576 yards and 8 touchdowns. He followed that up with a tremendous sophomore season, amassing 1,231 scrimmage yards and 11 touchdowns before having a down season in 2019 due to awful quarterback play. He is about the same size as Christian Kirk but plays more like Percy Harvin. Their similarities are extensive. They are both explosive athletes that are a threat to take any touch to the end zone. Harvin and Reagor both have experience as return man and could line up both inside and outside as receivers. Harvin was used far more extensively as a rusher, but Reagor has the ability to do that as well. Reagor is just dynamic. His speed, combined with his acceleration, is rare. He has great athleticism and has a great leaping ability. Philadelphia is a perfect landing spot for him, and he has the path to immediate production. A top 24 wide receiver 2 is definitely possible as a rookie, and has career top 10 potential. 1-10. After taking a running back and linebacker at 1-3 and 1-8 respectively, Crows still has a lot of team needs. If we take a look at their roster and team needs, we see that they still need another running back, wide receiver, and another linebacker. Things are pretty bleak at running back right now, with 0 running backs currently on an NFL team to score over 100 points last season. Owner Todd Tubbs needs to address the running back position, so he takes Florida State running back Cam Akers. Akers is 5'10" and weighs 217 pounds. He was selected in the 2nd round by the Los Angeles Rams. Akers is the running back 5 in this draft class, but it's unclear if he is the last Tier 1 running back or the first Tier 2 running back. He closely compares to Marlon Mack or a slightly bigger and more explosive version of Aaron Jones. Both are efficient between the tackles and can grind out tough yards. Akers is slightly faster than Jones and ran a 4.47 40 and has a speed score in the 89th percentile. His attacking run style is a cross between Marshawn Lynch and Dalvin Cook, another FSU alum. Akers suffered from one of the worst offensive lines in college football. FSU's line allowed Akers to be hit at or behind the line of scrimmage on a class-high 31% of his runs and open up a class-low 0.57 yards blocked per rush. And he still managed to rush for almost 1,150 yards with a 5 yards per carry average and 14 touchdowns in his last year. In 2019, Akers avoided 74 tackles and 904 of his 1,142 yards came after contact. Both were among the highest in the nation. While Akers created 4.37 yards on his own per rush, only 8th best in this running back class, his inside running ability is the worst of the top 5, with only 3.24 yards created on inside runs, while his 8.15 yards created on outside runs is the best in this class. As a receiver, Akers is fluid and explosive after the catch. Only Eno Benjamin and Clyde Edwards-Helaire saw more targets per game in the 2020 class than Akers. Akers is a decent pass protector and was often left to pick up the slack of FSU's line to keep the quarterback upright. His biggest weakness is his ball security. He fumbled the ball 8 times over 2 seasons, but one has to wonder if part of that again was attributed to horrible blocking. 111 Sandusky victims. If we take a quick look at their team needs and current roster, we see that they need a quarterback, which I don't think they addressed this year, a running back, wide receiver, defensive tackle, and safety. Running back is clearly the biggest need on this roster, with only Gordon and McCaffrey as legitimate starters, but I think any running back available at 111 is a stretch at 111. His wide receivers are getting old fast. Keenan Allen is 28, AB is 31 and is likely to never play again, Edelman is 34, and Thielen is 29. I think he's best served to grab a wide receiver here and worry about a running back at 211. If he wanted to grab a running back, no one could fault him for that. I think he has to take the best player available, and that is Justin Jefferson, wide receiver, LSU. Jefferson is 6'1", 202 pounds, and runs the 40 in 4.43. He is very comparable to Reggie Wayne, who was 6 foot, 203 pounds, and ran the 40 in 4.45. He also draws a lot of comparisons to Marvin Jones. They can both play in the slot and outside. They have a similar body type. Neither wide receiver will blow you away with their athleticism, but they are more than athletic enough to compete at the NFL level. He becomes a nightmare after the catch and has the speed to score from anywhere on the field. If he gets a clean release off the line of scrimmage, he's a threat to blow by the defensive back that's in front of him. He does a really good job of switching up his speed while running his routes. There are times where he will slow down his route to bait the defender, and there are other times where he will kick it into top gear to stretch the defense. He can struggle in press coverage and get rerouted when he has hands in his chest. His 102 receptions in 2019 set a school record and ranks 3rd all-time in SEC history. He had 10 games with over 100 yards receiving and 21 games with 5 catches or more. He led the team with a 23.21% target share, and 37.25% of his touches went for 15 yards or more. One more quick note here is that I don't think Sandusky needs to shy away from Jefferson simply because he already has Thielen on his team. As I made the argument for poor bastards to draft CeeDee Lamb despite already owning Amari Cooper, the same applies here, and even more so due to Thielen's age. You can't worry about 1 week a season when you should be focused on the other 15. With the vacated targets in Minnesota due to Stephon Diggs leaving for Buffalo, and Jefferson poised as the long-term Thielen replacement, I think Jefferson is the smart pick here. Sandusky may want to consider trading Thielen away soon anyway, considering his age. 112, fuck Xtreme. The reigning back-to-back champion is now on the clock. Let's take a quick look at their roster and team needs. He has 0 team needs. At this point, he's just stockpiling more depth somewhere. I know Taylor Tubbs is looking for linebacker help after losing both Luke Kuechly and Telvin Smith, so fuck Xtreme selects Baltimore linebacker Patrick Queen, LSU. That is the 3rd LSU player selected in our first round. Queen is 6 foot, 229 pounds, and runs the 40 in 4.5, which is in the 96th percentile. His NFL comparison is Levante David. On the field, he plays a lot like the aforementioned Telvin Smith. The Ravens needed a 3-down middle linebacker to step in, and Queen fills that need perfectly. Quinn was drafted 20 picks behind Isaiah Simmons and was the 4th linebacker taken in the draft behind Simmons, Murray, and Brooks. He has great range and looks comfortable in coverage. He processes plays quickly and then reacts with his speed and acceleration. He has great hips and lateral movement and is effective in stopping the run. They have been searching for a middle linebacker since C.J. Mosley left. The downside to Queen, and possible reason that he falls in some drafts, is that he is a bit undersized and only started 1 season at LSU. However, Baltimore might be the best landing spot of all the rookie linebackers. That is the end of the first round. Gotham City Jokers is now on the clock for their first pick in the second round. 2-1, Gotham City Jokers. Here's a quick reminder of their team needs. They need 1 running back, 4 wide receivers, and 2 linebackers. They already addressed their running back situation in the first round with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Now they turn their attention to the wide receiver problem, which I believe should be their next 3 picks at 2-1, 3-1, and 3-10. The first wide receiver they select is Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver T. Higgins from Clemson. Brandon Ayuk could also be a very, very smart pick here, and it would depend entirely if owner Mike Jargo values the tall physical receiver Higgins or the smaller, quicker receiver Ayuk. I personally have Higgins ranked just a little higher, so I'm going to suggest T. Higgins. Some rankings have him listed as the wide receiver 3 in this draft class and the number 5 overall rookie, so owner Mike Jargo is happy to see him on the board at 2-1, which is also where he went in the real NFL draft. Higgins is 6'4", 218 pounds, and runs the 40 in 4.59. Higgins also had a breakout age of 18.6, which is in the 96th percentile. He draws some comparisons to both Allen Robinson and Dez Bryant due to his strong hands and ability to post up on and bully defenders at the catch point. Like both of those wide receivers, he isn't going to blow you away with athleticism, but he can make highlight reel plays while contested by extending his arms and using his strong hands. He attacks the ball in transit and catches everything thrown his way. His hands are as sticky as they come. After the catch, he secures the ball and moves upfield. He can be a little stiff getting in and out of breaks and needs to improve his route running. He and fellow rookie Joe Burrow can be very dangerous together for years to come. 2.2 Poor Bastards. Speaking of Joe Burrow, Poor Bastards' patience pays off. This would still be the second earliest a quarterback has ever been taken in Xtreme history, behind only Jameis Winston at 112. Burrow was selected as the first player taken in the NFL draft by the Cincinnati Bengals out of LSU, our 4th LSU player taken in 14 spots. Burrow is 6'4" and 221 pounds. Burrow had a legend, wait for it, Derry senior season, throwing for 60 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions while completing an NCAA record 76.3% of his passes on his way to a national championship. Speaking of Jameis Winston, Burrow is comparable in size, but plays a little bit more like Aaron Rodgers. He's not a quick runner, but he is elusive, has good footwork, and senses pressure like Rodgers. He may not have a deep ball like Rodgers, but he has a strong arm and can make the throws to all levels of the field. He also maintains a level head and nothing rattles him. He maintains his composure and always keeps his head downfield and takes what the defense gives him. His decision-making and cool head are what separate him from the others, as well as his bravado, which he has plenty of. The knock on him is that he is a one-year wonder, much like Mitchell Trubisky, so he doesn't have a ton of starting experience. He doesn't have any elite physical traits. He doesn't have a cannon like Eason or Love. He has great accuracy but lacks the touch of Tua, and he doesn't have the experience like Herbert. 2-3. The Crows are back after going running back, linebacker, running back. The Crows return to the linebacker position once again to replace those 2 linebackers they traded away. He selects pick 123 in the NFL draft of the Los Angeles Chargers, and that is Kenneth Murray out of Oklahoma. The Chargers actually traded up to get him, so they are obviously very high on him. Murray is 6'3" and weighs in at 241 pounds. Murray has tremendous size and speed. He ran the 40 in 4.52, which is in the 93rd percentile. He has a speed score of 115.5, 94th percentile, and a burst score of 129.1, 92nd percentile. One of his NFL comparisons is Demario Davis. Murray makes plays with reckless abandon and intensity. He covers an immense amount of ground quickly and rarely misses a tackle. He is a big hitter and has the ability to change the trajectory of a game in one play. He is always around the ball whether he makes the play or not, and can also play in coverage. The knock on him is that while he can play in coverage, he can lose against top-tier NFL talent. The other downside is that Gus Bradley has a sometimes frustrating approach to use of multiple linebackers, but the fact that they traded up to get him at great cost could mean that will no longer be the case. They have been looking for a true middle linebacker for some time, and I think they found him. Murray once had 28 tackles in one game against Army. 2-4. This is the vacated team. This team needs a running back, tight end, and linebacker. He already addressed his running back in the first round with Jonathan Taylor, and now he gets another running back, and they select Buffalo Bills running back out of Utah, Zach Moss. Moss is 5'9" and 223 pounds. He compiled 1,800 scrimmage yards and 17 touchdowns during his senior year. His college dominator and target share figures are in the top 20% of running back prospects historically, but a subpar performance at the NFL Combine decreased his dynasty value. He lands in an apparent timeshare with talented second-year back Devin Singletary, who is also his closest NFL comparison. Buffalo selected both in the third round just 1 year apart. Both have impressive college resumes, poor athletic testing, and a stout physical build. Although Singletary is about 20 pounds lighter and 2 inches shorter, they are both very similar. Zach Moss has a terrible athleticism score of 2.88, and Singletary's was an abysmal 1.73. However, Mark Ingram's score was also 2.57, so poor athletic testing can be overcome. Speaking of Mark Ingram, Moss is a weird blend of Kareem Hunt and Mark Ingram. He's not a flashy player, and there are a few holes in his game. His lack of long speed is his biggest flaw. Like Hunt, another third rounder, he has great agility and elite contact balance, and like Ingram, he has power element to his game and is an asset as a pass catcher. He had 2 seasons in college with 28 or more receptions. He is the cousin of former NFL players Cinereese and Santana Moss. 2-5. Daddy issues. His team still needs a wide receiver, tight end, and a linebacker. He addressed the wide receiver in the first round. Owner Matt Ron could address his linebacker need here, and if one of the top 3 linebackers are still on the board here, then he probably should. However, I think he should double down on wide receiver and select the Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver out of Arizona State, Brandon Ayuk. In any other draft class, this guy is a first-round dynasty selection. He was drafted in the first round by the 49ers at 125. Ayuk is 6 foot, 205 pounds. He has great metrics. He ran the 40 in 4.5. His burst score is in the 92nd percentile. He has near elite explosion with a broad jump in the 88th percentile and a vertical jump in the 92nd percentile. He has an overall spark score in the 76th percentile. His college dominator score is in the 82nd percentile, although he did go to a smaller school. He is an incredible yards after the catch athlete who averaged the 6th most yards after carry in all of college football. He was one of the top returners in all of college football. He has average speed, but good for his size and makeup. His long arms and big hands allow him to pluck balls out of the air. He also played both inside and outside snaps in college. Some of his weaknesses are his lack of routes ran in college. He was mainly a straight line route guy, so his route tree is unknown. His strength is also an issue and only put up 11 reps of the bench press at the combine. He has very little experience against man or press coverage. He only has 1 year of full-time college production and is still recovering from a core injury. He also joins an offense that was second to last in pass attempts per game, so there isn't much volume. From a physical perspective, he compares in size to Devontae Adams and DJ Moore, but from a style perspective, he plays more like fellow 49er Deebo Samuel. Regardless, he is super talented. I know the Bucs fan and running back hoarder in Matt is going to be tempted to take Keyshawn Vaughn here. Don't do it. Do not draft a third-round backup running back over the first-round wide receiver. 2-6. Kyle Orton's drinking buddies. With the 6th pick in the second round, Kyle Orton's drinking buddies selects Miami Dolphins quarterback out of Alabama, Tua Tagovailoa. Orton needs a quarterback badly. He has Kyler Murray, Mason Rudolph, and Tyrod Taylor. Of those 3, only Murray is projected to be a true starter for years to come. Taylor may start the season as the starter, but will likely lose the job to Herbert at some point. Rudolph doesn't look like the future even if Ben goes down again or retires. Tua is 6 foot and 217 pounds. Tua broke onto the scene on the biggest and brightest of stages as a true freshman in 2017. Having played sparingly in the regular season, he stepped up in relief of struggling Jalen Hurts in the national championship game versus Georgia to deliver the game-winning touchdown pass in overtime to bring home the title. He only went on to become one of the most prolific passers in Alabama history, while sitting out many fourth quarters and an injury-shortened junior campaign. The two comps I've seen the most are Russell Wilson and Drew Brees. He's more Brees than Wilson with regard to how he processes the game and wins from the pocket. He lacks the rushing upside of Wilson, but can extend plays with his legs. However, nobody really wants to see that from Tua moving forward. He has a high football IQ and is a very accurate passer. He is a surgeon from the pocket. He delivers a very tight ball with fantastic placement. He can accurately throw the ball in all quadrants of the field on all three levels. His ability to process information and progress through his reads is probably the best in his class, and maybe the best we've seen from a quarterback prospect in the last couple of years. He's a natural leader, someone you won't have to worry about putting in the work to get better and improve. Tua leaves Alabama with at least 11 school records. Single-season passing yards, 3,966 in 2018. Single-game touchdown passes, 6 against Ole Miss. Single-season touchdown passes, 43 last year. And career touchdown passes, 87. Career touchdowns responsible for, 96. Career 300-yard passing games, 10. And career 4-touchdown games, 12. The biggest concern with him moving forward is going to be his injury history. He's dealt with multiple ankle injuries that required him to have the much spotlighted tightrope surgery to help aid in the recovery of his high ankle sprains. Tua dislocated his hip in a game versus Mississippi State on November 16, 2019. While it's possible that Fitzpatrick will begin the season as the starter, I'm sure we'll see Tua at some point. 2-7. Joe Mama. Owner Caden Tubbs needs a running back, 2 wide receivers, defensive end, and a linebacker. He already got one of his wide receivers in the first round, and now he selects Indianapolis Colts wide receiver out of USC, Michael Pittman. This is a break from the speed guys Caden typically drafts, but Pittman is still plenty fast, and he's bigger, more physical receiver, and Caden understands that you can't build your team with just one type of player. Pittman is 6'4", 223 pounds, and runs a 4.52 40. He has great metrics, including a 93rd percentile in speed score and an 89th percentile in catch radius. Pittman might have the strongest hands in this year's draft class. He can easily pluck the ball out of the air. His large catch radius makes him an easy target. His ball skills are a major strength, and he does a good job of tracking the ball while it's in the air, while using his size, combined with his body control, to block out the defender to get into position to make the grab. He's good at contested catches, and drops are definitely not an issue with him. He's not very flashy after the catch, since he doesn't possess elite-level speed. He's fast enough to get downfield, but his lack of change of direction skills, stacked with his limited speed, doesn't make him the most elusive wide receiver after the catch. He needs to build up to get to full speed, and after that, he still needs some space to have a chance to pull away from the entire defense. Faster defensive backs with good pursuit angles will catch him from behind. When it comes to his release, Pittman does what you would expect him to do for a player of his size. He's physical and moves defenders around when facing press coverage. He has an excellent jab step to stack the defender before generating his next move. As of right now, he's not a diverse route runner, but he does a good job of snapping off his routes. He's assertive when it comes to getting in and out of his breaks. His urgency allows him to create separation at the top of the routes. Overall, he is a solid possession receiver with elite-level ball skills. His my ball mentality at the catch point can make him a difference maker against smaller, less aggressive defenders. 2-8. Howie's Hustlers. This is Howie's first pick in this draft. Let's take a quick look at his team needs. We see that he needs a wide receiver, maybe a tight end, defensive end, and a linebacker. Howie could easily take a wide receiver here with this deep wide receiver class, but he just can't pass up the opportunity to draft a generational talent like Washington's defensive end out of Ohio State, Chase Young, to pair with former Ohio State beast Joey Bosa. Anyway, let's look at the number 1 IDP player in this draft class, an all-around beast of a player. Chase Young is 6'5", 264 pounds. While he did not run the 40 at the combine, it has been reported that his 40 is a 4.94. He put up eye-popping numbers in his junior year in 2019 with 46 tackles, 21 of those for a loss, 16.5 sacks, 7 forced fumbles, and 3 pass breakups in 12 games. He is a rare prospect with elite skill set. He is a ferocious pass rusher on a perfect defense for him. Washington now has so many talented players in the line that it'll be tough to block them all. They'll get to have Young on one side and Montez Sweat on the other. He has an insanely quick first step and converts speed to power as good as anyone. He is every bit as talented as Myles Garrett and Joey and Nick Bosa. He is a smart defender, which helps him read zone run plays and also anticipate runs before the snap. Unlike some other edge rushers in this class, Young is excellent against the run and will also help out and contain. Although we tend to focus on his pass rush, he is going to make a difference in the run game as well. A couple of player comparisons for him are Julius Peppers, Sean Merriman, Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, and Bradley Chubb. He is great at beating cut blocks and is cat quick with his hands and lateral movement. Daddy issues. Owner Matt Ron has his third pick in the first 2 rounds after going wide receiver and wide receiver with his first 2 picks. His early patience pays off and he decides to address another team need with Kansas City Chiefs linebacker out of Mississippi State, Willie Gay. Gay is 6'1", 243 pounds. He has a 4.45 40, which is the second fastest among all linebackers. His speed score and burst score are both in the 98th percentile. He has great size and speed to play every down and is great in coverage. He is also smart playing the run and keeps plays in front of him. The Chiefs have been looking for a linebacker with his skill set for a while. His best player comparison is last year's rookie linebacker Devin White. The downside is that he only started 6 games in college, so there isn't a lot of tape on him, but what we've seen from him is great. He is dripping with upside, and if you're a team who missed out on one of the top 3 linebackers in this class, he's a good consolation prize. 210. The Crows owner Todd Tubbs selects Jacksonville Jaguars wide receiver out of Colorado, Laviska Shenault. This is a bit of a homer pick for Todd, who has been a Jaguars fan since 1995. Shenault is 6'1", 227 pounds. His statistics support his case as a quality prospect. His team-adjusted share of production and breakout age, 19.9 years old, both place him in the top third of historical NFL wide receiver prospects. His game film reinforces his potential as a legitimate NFL wide receiver. He looks every ounce of his listed 6'1" and 227 pounds, and his strength is evident. Shenault routinely plows through tackles to create yards after the catch. But he is not simply strong. He manufactures yards with elusiveness, short area burst, and finishing speed. At times he resembles A.J. Brown, given his physical makeup and yards after catch ability. We also see the versatility that prompted Colorado to give Shenault 42 career rushing attempts. He takes handoffs and lines up as a Wildcat quarterback. He is targeted behind the line of scrimmage, on intermediate routes, and as a deep threat. His versatility and yards after catch ability are well suited to today's NFL. One player comparison for him would be Eric Decker. The biggest knock on Shenault is his injury history. 211. Sandusky victims. Owner Brandon Tubbs is back for his second pick in the draft, and after getting a wide receiver in the first round, he decides to get some depth at running back since he mainly only has Melvin Gordon and McCaffrey. He selects Washington running back out of Memphis, Antonio Gibson. Gibson is 6 foot, 228 pounds, and can absolutely fly with a 4.39 40, which is in the 98th percentile. His speed score is also in the 99th percentile. Gibson is arguably the most versatile offensive weapon in this draft class. He is a hybrid running back wide receiver, and in 2019, he needed just 71 touches from scrimmage to surpass 1,000 total yards. Pro Football Focus credits him with 16 broken tackles on 33 carries and 17 broken tackles on 38 receptions. Gibson's metrics profile is unique, given his hybrid role and limited body of work. Classification as a running back puts him in the historical top 12 percentile in terms of target share and in the 99th percentile of yards per carry. His early third down draft capital is also a positive. A near 50-50 split of collegiate carries to receptions highlights his versatility. The versatility will lead to plenty of opportunities in the Washington offense. With Ron Rivera now in Washington, I wouldn't be surprised to see Gibson used in a similar receiving back role as McCaffrey, and could be a PPR superstar. He closely compares to Joe Mixon in that both players are listed at 228 pounds with a BMI of around 30. Both are assets in the passing game, with second-day NFL draft capital. However, Mixon is a more polished runner and less of a hybrid player than Gibson. The biggest knock on Gibson is that he is a one-year wonder. 212, the vacated team. With the last pick in the second round, they select the Las Vegas Raiders wide receiver out of South Carolina, Bryan Edwards. Edwards is 6'3", 212 pounds, and has a college dominator score in the 94th percentile. His breakout age was at 17.8, which is in the 100th percentile. Many believe that he is the best wide receiver that the Raiders drafted and will be their future wide receiver 1. In his career at South Carolina, he had 234 receptions for 3,045 yards and 22 touchdowns. He is a refined and clean route runner with incredibly strong hands. He is great in contested catch situations and rarely loses 50-50 balls. He loves to engage when blocking and plays hard on every down. He is good at all three levels of the field. He has impressive short area quickness and burst and uses his hips, body, and hands together to create separation and leverage. Despite the lack of elite speed, he still has great run after the catch ability. He needs to be more physical in press coverage. Although he is a clean route runner, he is not fluid and needs more explosion out of his cuts. Needs to improve catching more with his hands and less with his body. Edwards is the second of 3 wide receivers selected by the Raiders and could be facing a lot of competition for targets in that offense, but I think he has the ability to stand out. His NFL comparison is Michael Crabtree. They have similar size and a lot of the same strengths. That is the end of the second round. Now we're going to enter our speed round in the third round of our mock draft. There will be no analysis or videos, just the picks. 3-1, Gotham City Jokers, Denzel Mims, wide receiver. 3-2, Poor Bastards, Justin Herbert, quarterback. 3-3, Howie's Hustlers, KJ Hamler, wide receiver. 3-4, Vacated Team, Darrington Evans, running back. 3-5, Daddy Issues, Keyshawn Vaughn, running back. 3-6, Kyle Orton's Drinking Buddies, Jordan Brooks, linebacker. 3-7, Joe Mama, Anthony McFarland, running back. 3-8, Howie's Hustlers, A.J. Dillon, running back. 3-9, Das, Raiderhawk, Chase Claypool, wide receiver. 3-10, Gotham, Van Jefferson, wide receiver. 3-11, Crows, Antonio Gandy Golden, wide receiver. 3-12, Kyle Orton's Drinking Buddies, Xavier McKinney, safety. That is the end of our mock draft. Thanks for watching, and we can't wait to do this for real. Happy drafting.